What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 637 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hey there.
And all of you, of course, are joining us. And, of course, we always want to know what you have to say as we are going along with this podcast. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. Talk about all the topics that we're going to get into today. While you're doing that on YouTube, click on all the different good buttons that you can see on there. The thanks button is a little tip jar. The like button is completely free. Helps us out with the algorithm, though, quite a bit. Double check that you are subscribed to this channel. Ring that little notification bell because we have two different things coming up these next 2 weeks that are going to be the live post shows for the pay-per-view points. Elimination Chamber coming up next week, and then AEW Revolution following that. So that way you get to know when we go live for those shows. Also, click on that little join button that's next to the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you can get access to the Patreon type stuff. Of course, if you go to Patreon, you can get access to, but YouTube, you get the video portion of that as well. You got the Darkcast, Pick Your Poison tier, and so on and so forth. And if you don't know what the Darkcast most recent episode was, I had put up a little thing to Callum's suggestion, which I think is a good idea. I'm going to do this going forward, of just a little reminder of when we do these Darkcasts of what they are and, you know, how the discussion generally went, if we have like an idea in mind, which that was, what if Cody Rhodes had defeated Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39 and he won the undisputed WWE championship, and what would have happened as a result of that? Things like, we dive into what would that have changed for Roman Reigns' path? Would the Rock feud still be going on? And if it would be, how would it have changed? What would be the championship situation? Would the World Heavyweight title be there? Would it be a different belt? All these other kinds of things that go into that. So it's definitely one of my more favorite Darkcasts that we've done, and I think that you should definitely check that out. So join the Darkcast here, either on Patreon or YouTube, and get access to that. Also, pick up some Redbubble or TeePublic merchandise if you want to get any of that stuff. And if you want to join the discussion elsewhere beyond the YouTube comments and the Megamaniacs Facebook group and the Facebook and the Twitter and, you know, all the other kind of means that you can do that, you could also join the Discord server that we have set up now. And I always want to do more of those kind of things too. So if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see added to that, let me know. Keep your eyes peeled for some other things that are happening. I don't know exactly when or how or what, but, you know, there's always more on the horizon. So we have a lot of hot tags to get into. We're also most likely going to be recording another podcast that'll be up tomorrow, which will be a follow-up of our mock draft. Check that episode out. You get to see us have our live reactions to the mock draft picks. It's the first time that we were doing that. I think that people are pretty much very receptive to that, which is cool. And we'll continue that on with our fantasy booking of our Elimination Chamber cards and stuff. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, hot tags. Of course, we are going to be ranging from all sorts of different topics here. And one of the main ones that I want to get into, I'll just toss this one out as one of the first ones. I don't like this at all. I hate reporting on these stories of people being released. And I also hate reporting on them being released when I don't see the point in it. And that's the most recent one is Matt Camp got fired from WWE. And following the Mackenzie Mitchell release, I know that a lot of people are probably like, oh, who cares if they're not wrestlers and they don't get invested in, like, you know, if Kayla Braxton or Kathy Kelly or whatever would get released. But Matt Camp to me is a textbook example of some guy you want to keep around. He's great at doing pre-show panels. He was great at hosting the Ultimate Show. He is knowledgeable, passionate about pro wrestling. As far as I'm aware, nothing bad to be like, oh, he got fired because he got into like some backstage argument or something. The hell's going on here? They getting rid of Matt Camp and Mackenzie Mitchell? Like, is there just an edict of, well, we can't keep people that are good at their jobs?
They also got rid of Kevin Patrick, and the internet seems to think that he doesn't fit that criteria. So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm, you know, more annoyed about the Mackenzie Mitchell Matt Camp thing.
It looks like they replaced him with Sam Roberts on The Bump, at least. I watched The Bump. This week was the first time I ever watched an episode of The Bump front to back, so that's something. It looks like they replaced him with Sam Roberts, and maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe you wanted to move on. It was definitely a quiet release. nobody's said anything so far. So it's unfortunate. He was really good at his job. Calvin, do you have any recollection of that camp?
You definitely don't watch these extraneous things because you're not watching the regular programming, but I'm sure you've come across this stuff.
I'm pretty sure that, like, until I saw the news like this week, and then there was like photos of him in relation to articles talking about his release, I wouldn't have been able to pick him out of the lineup.
Probably not. I mean, he is not, doing commentary on Monday Night Raw or something like that, or the pay-per-view stuff. You don't watch the pre-shows, so that's another element that like doesn't translate the same and all. But any kind of like ideas in mind about like you think that they're basically cleaning house and just trying to replace most of the personnel, or do you think that these are just all isolated incidents?
This could be something to do with the fact that it is now a TKO unified system. I mean, they've already talked about how they've been clearing out house behind the scenes in terms of unifying the two sides of things. So there might be a case of utilizing presenters or commentators or anything of that ilk between both the UFC side of things and the WWE side of things. Again, that's just pure speculation on my part. But it would start to at least make sense from that perspective of, well, they're only doing UFC shows like every other weekend or whatever. Again, don't follow the UFC that closely, so I can't say exactly what their frequency of shows are, but I imagine that certain of those people would be available to do stuff on either a Monday or a Friday.
I'm starting to get a feeling that they think that they have too many people on the payroll, period. And that they are doing what a lot of corporations and companies are doing, which is not only, we're not going to go down the whole rabbit hole of me complaining about how nobody does their jobs anymore and every corporation is evil. But like, it seems like a lot of places are like, oh, well, if we can get 3 people to do the work of 12, we're going to do it. And I think that they are looking at, if you look at the list of people that are in the broadcast side of it, totally non, performers in the sense of like, they're not stepping in the ring and all. You've got quite a bit of people. And yeah, they do have to do other shows and they do have other means of like utilizing this talent. But the broadcast team is, you got 4, 5, 6, 7 people, I think, doing commentary alone. Well, at least like I'm going to look on the page on Wikipedia, which of course is sometimes out of date. But like on Raw, they have Kathy Kelly, Jackie Redmond, Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, and Samantha Irvin. On SmackDown, Byron Saxton, Corey Graves, Caleb Braxton, Mike Rome, Wade Barrett. NXT out Alicia Taylor, Blake Howard, Booker T, Kelly Kincaid, Sarah Schreiber, Vic Joseph. And then you've got all the foreign language people hosting all these shows. You've got people like Sam Roberts who get brought in, Peter Rosenberg who gets brought in, Scott Stanford does all that stuff, Ryan Popola, Megan Morant. Maybe they're just kind of looking at this and going like, well, do we need every single one of these? And then they're just getting rid of the people that have the highest contracts or something instead of actually trying to think who could be best utilized for whatever. We know that Mackenzie was fired, that she didn't just quit. I'm not entirely sure if there's been any clarification yet about if Matt Camp left or he got released. It's just been that he's fired. So I don't know why out of all those people, those are the ones that they felt the need to get rid of, especially because it seems like they were well liked. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on as far as if this keeps happening, there's definitely another reason to it other than isolated just, well, that individual person for some reason was on the chopping block. I don't buy into that being the case though. So that sucks for Matt Camp. Big fan of his. And I hope that he either comes back ideally or that he gets some other gig elsewhere that he enjoys just as much or better. Speaking of somebody being released from a company, though, and coming back, QT Marshall's back in AEW?
Yeah. So
and that didn't take long, did it?
Well, the thing is, like the reports had stated that he wanted to wrestle more, right? And now he's back in an office capacity because that's where everybody liked him, and he will not be wrestling.
So he got a lot out of that deal, right? You got to imagine going to the table and being like, "Listen, I want you to like pay me more money," and then somebody's like, "How about we pay you less?" And you go, "Deal." Like, you know.
I think there's a little bit more nuance to this. So essentially, he left the company due to wanting to test himself as a wrestler and become maybe like a bigger star in another promotion, and then also that he wasn't too keen on some of the creative directions that the company was going in. And so he's basically now come back and said, "Yeah, I'm totally fine with the direction the company is now going in, and I'm fine not wrestling on your TV show anymore." So I think he's still doing indie stuff. So he's still going to be doing that. But clearly, well, I'd say I can't say with any real certainty. Only he knows whether it was just a case of, okay, I realised a couple of months later that this was a bad decision, and if Tony Khan was willing to bring me back, then I'll go back. Or it could just be on the lines of, hey, no prominent wrestling company wanted to sign me as a wrestler, so I'm going back. So it could be one or the other. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he just decided a couple of months later that this doesn't feel right, and if the opportunity to go back is still available, then I'll go back.
And it definitely was on the table, so we know that he had a good relationship with Tony. It's just weird to me that kind of, if nobody had reported anything to begin with, it would have never been known. You know what I mean?
But that he had left the company, you mean?
Yeah. Because people would have just assumed he was working backstage.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's what he'll be doing. I think it's a good move. I think a lot of people liked him. And I think it's part of that, let's get the feeling back. He's a big part of the growth of AEW, and why would you swap that out?
I'm curious about the ins and outs that we're never going to really know, but about, what is it that they disagreed on with like the direction of the company more specifically. I know that I think one report had said something along the lines of that he didn't like the balance between the types of matches that they were doing, about like
something about it being like too much like New Japan
and like wanting to have like more story, I think, right?
Yeah.
So
another company that wouldn't hire him.
So I mean, I wish I could be a fly on the wall for those conversations, for it to be like, I don't like the direction of this and I don't want to be a part of it, and then we haven't really seen any change in that direction where it would have been like, and now they're doing something completely different. Like, no, they're kind of doing the same. So
unless it was backwards, like he didn't like the
story stuff and he wanted more of like the quote unquote sports oriented approach.
Yeah.
That would make more sense to me than for him to be like, we would need more story, because they've had less of like that approach in the past couple weeks. Not that they've had none, but like, I mean, they have like the ranking system now, which is less of a story thing and more of like a numbers game. And I don't know, maybe that was a difference maker, or maybe it was something as simple as just, hey, I think I can get a job elsewhere. And then a couple weeks goes by and nobody's calling. And then he's like, hey, never mind.
And you know what? Like, all jokes aside, respect. That's sometimes you got to make the right move.
Yeah, sometimes you leave a company thinking that you want to be gone and that the grass is greener on the other side and everybody's going to be calling for you and stuff. And then sometimes it's not the case, and you can realize that, all right, maybe I overextended, or, plenty of times people go back to other companies and stuff. It's not like he's like crawling back the way that the supplicants thing is on The Simpsons. Could he get in Mr. Burns' office or something? If that is, then that's a whole nother story, but I'd assume it's not the case. So there goes the QT Marshall, like, hey, is he going to be joining, TNA, or is he going to be NWA or WWE Performance Center or whatever? At least not in the meantime. And who knows what the future has in store. So let's bounce around to, let's do this one, because this one's kind of nothing. Post Malone's going to be in 2K24. It's kind of silly to me.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing this a lot lately. They had the MGK last year. I think Eminem was supposed to be in 22, but word got out, so he bailed.
At least Machine Gun Kelly had gotten like tossed through a table at one point.
Post Malone's been on TV too, hasn't he?
Has he? I don't remember him being doing anything.
I mean, look, if you can get the chance to cross promote and all that good stuff, I don't think you're going to say no.
I mean, that's the most blatantly obvious part of it. Is they're just like, well, popular person, if we put them in the game, they can promote it and then we can get more sales and maybe somebody's going to buy the game because it's Post Malone's in there. Which, I'll put it this way. I don't think that, like, when companies do this stuff, it's pretty obvious how they're doing it. And, you know, it's not going to work for me, but I can't really blame them for trying, you know. Certainly not going to be something that's going to make me want to buy the game. I am not the type of person. I'm not the target audience. For that matter, anybody. If they would have said like any celebrity in there, hey, Kevin Smith is in there. Hey, you know, I don't even know who like I could be a fan of. I'm like,
well, you went with Kevin Smith
because Kevin Smith is a dude that like when I try to think of celebrities that I would like be friends with or like have a cool relationship with, like Kevin Smith is one of those guys. I'm like, yeah, there's no way that I wouldn't just like hang out with Kevin Smith. But like the more and more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I do not care about celebrities, so I'm not that type of person. But yeah, I like some Post Malone songs. Sunflower's a good fucking song. So is Rockstar. Like, it's just, I'm not going to play the game based off of that, though. I'd only buy the game based off of somebody being on it if, like, I was in the game. And that would be a different story. Then I'd be like, fuck yeah, okay, let's go buy this game. But you got any more, if either of you guys think you're more or less likely to buy 2K24 based off of Post Malone?
I don't like or dislike Post Malone enough to say that I'm eager to, you know, have Omos beat him up or something. So it's cool. He's also doing the soundtrack. Had a bunch of songs that I have no clue what they were. So that's always good. You always feel very young and in tune with things when you can look at a soundtrack and go, never heard of any of these things. So
yeah, I'm not a fan of being in stores and having them play songs that I'm familiar with, and that's like, that's the oldies thing. Fuck.
Yeah, huh?
What do you mean this is classic rock? Now you've probably been the well, actually, Callum, did you buy the 2K23? I forget.
I did, yeah.
Do you think that you're going to buy 24? Or
potentially?
What's your like excitement level of it right now? Not necessarily tied to Post Malone, but I mean, maybe that'll change the whole thing. I don't know.
It's pretty like middle of the road. I'm not super impressed with the 40 years WrestleMania thing. That doesn't interest me because they did the same thing when 30 years WrestleMania happened. So,
but I want to go a step further with that since you bring it up. I really dislike the fact that 40 years WrestleMania is so barren. And I think for the first time, not Corbin, Tony, don't even say it.
I didn't even think of it. I'm proud of you for breaking it up, though.
For the first time, it's like, oh, this is one of the drawbacks of not having everyone in-house and not having the monopoly, where you're like, where is, you can't do Edge and Foley because Edge is playing somewhere else. You can't do Michael's Flair because like he's doing something else. And I understand what you're saying. They did it 10 years ago, but also the fact that I don't even think they're doing Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte, nor can they do Sasha and Bianca. It's like, oh, so it's 40 years of WrestleMania with 21 matches, and 3 of those matches, so 1/7 of the whole mode, comes from last year. They're doing Bianca and Asuka just to get Bianca in the game.
As if that match really particularly matters.
Right. It really, in that way, it throws me off.
Can they have at least done Bianca and Becky?
I think that they should. I don't think that they have agreed to, but they might be just to get Becky. Because they're not doing Becky Shayna, and so they might be doing Becky Bianca.
Yeah, I don't imagine they're doing anything from WrestleMania 36.
They are doing the Firefly Funhouse.
How do you wrestle that match?
Well, that's the good thing. A lot of it's so cutscene based that you can probably just do a couple of movements, trigger the next cutscene.
That sounds so boring.
Because it's just a video essay, that match. It's like it's just a
promo.
Yeah, it's a promo piece on John Cena's career and like whether he would turn heel or face or whatever. It's like, yeah, as I say, that part of it doesn't really appeal to me that much.
I will say this: I think it's a mistake if you don't do Taker AJ. It's Undertaker's last match. I think find a way to get that in the game.
They probably sat around and they went, oh, we'd have to create all new assets and we'd have to have a whole new environment, collision detection. Can't we just not have half of these things?
It'll be some kind of DLC package where they'll add more matches to that once they become available to do so.
Because
no, I wouldn't hope. I if I'm paying like X amount of dollars or pounds for a game, I expect this to be a finished game.
Right.
Oh well, that's a different. We can't get into that debate here because that'll take the rest of the show. Because
I don't even think there is a debate. It's just that's stupid and we hate it.
Well, no, I think like that is one of the biggest killers right now in all of gaming. Is like you're not even buying a full game, like, but the full game for the 40 years of WrestleMania version will give you everything whenever everything drops is $120.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Like, they can always say, oh, well, this part of the game isn't finished yet, but don't you worry because, we can patch it later. I think that's one of the worst things.
See, I've never cared too much about video games being expensive. I think that they are, in terms of like long-term experiences, they're for the most part worth it. Like if you pay, I don't know, $90 for a game and you end up getting 90 hours out of it, then
yeah,
it's pretty worthwhile at the end of the day.
Depends on the game.
You go back and replayability. What I have an issue with is what this game will have, and what a lot of modern games will have, is the day one releases of them are usually pretty terrible and buggy because they'll just patch it later on. They're just trying to hit their deadline. What gives me a little bit of hope of this game is that they probably could have held back and announced it to be happening like post WrestleMania or later on in the year, because I think did 2K23 come out around about this time, or did it come out slightly later?
So ever since with the release of 2K22, they started on a new cycle of a March release, whereas opposed to every year of my life before then, it was an October, November release.
So I think they could have at least, like, the fact that they are kind of ready and they've seemingly getting everything sorted for it pretty soon makes me feel like that it will be fairly ready. As I say, it will still have some bugs, but every video game has a bug or whatever, and so a lot of people search those, seek them out as well, and that can make things somewhat more fun as well. But yeah, there's not really much that has been announced so far that feels like it's a exciting evolution on 2K23. Again, if like reviews come out and they say that it's great, then I might check it out. But yeah, I think that it's one of these franchises now that I kind of like have to wait and see what other people say about it and say whether it's worth getting excited about or not. Right now, just from the surface, it just looks like 2K23 with an updated roster and the WrestleMania mode that they brought back from 10 years ago.
My
sickness
is that I need to own it because I need to own all of them, and that's how they get me in terms of like a playability and a fun factor. Yeah, I haven't felt that in too long of a time. Since they jumped to 2K 10 years ago, I've never really gravitated towards what they were doing instead of the free-flowing nature of the THQ games. By the way, they do Fight Forever, which just had another DLC drop this week, actually. And the problem with that game is the base game is too lacking still. I don't know. I miss the days of buying a game and getting like a full completed package and knowing what you're getting.
And enjoying it and feeling like it's worth the money as well. Because obviously, like, no matter what you get, it might end up being you play the game and 20 minutes in, you're like, this is garbage. I wish I could have just rented this or something. You mentioned about having a lot of evolution from one game to another. Just one of the things that I think is like stupid when it comes to video games is definitely they had assets that they brought over from previous things. So it's like it's easier and easier every year to make these games. They don't tweak that much. And when you look at like, I'm not a big of a fan of like, you know, the graphics are the most important thing to a lot of people. And they aren't for me. But man, a lot of that stuff gotta be just things that carry over, and then they want to charge all that much money, and it's like you didn't have to do that much research or whatever. I looked at the footage of somebody playing a thing with the WrestleMania 9, Yoko, Brett, and Hogan, and the graphics look like crap. So it's like, well, if I cared about graphics, I wouldn't really like that enough. And then if you did just get that recently with the 30 years of WrestleMania, it's the same stuff.
I wouldn't say that that's recent. You get to be realistic and say, even if it's recent to us, 10 years ago, that's true. A huge gap.
But even then, you had like more options available for the matches and stuff. Like in the past 10 years, how many more things are they going to put in there that are really all that interesting?
Well, that's the funny thing is a lot of what they were touting was like, yeah, we get to spotlight the women, and I'm like,
who?
Yeah, but is Ronda even in the game for you to spotlight that groundbreaking match?
Yeah,
Sasha's not in the game for you to spotlight that groundbreaking match.
Yeah, that's the kind of crap that like all the more reason why I wouldn't end up picking that up. Completely random side thing, but if you're talking about something in the entertainment industry outside of wrestling that you know, you might end up wanting to be invested in and you might be disappointed in or whatever, we're going to a brief fanboys thing. Madam Web's a terrible movie. Either go see it knowing it's bad or don't see it. That movie's straight up garbage, and Sony needs to stop doing those things. Okay. I needed to say that on some kind of podcast because I'm not dedicating a whole fucking thing to it.
Just another thing as well for people on my side of the pond in the UK. Iron Claw finally came out in cinemas. So
nice.
Whoa. So it just dropped here on VOD. Over there, it just came out in the movies.
Yeah, it came out on February
Really?
9th. Was when it first premiered in the UK.
Did you watch it in theaters?
I haven't seen it yet, but I am tempted to go this weekend. But it just depends on if I have time or the energy to go down to the cinema. I don't like going to watch movies in cinemas and stuff. The advantage of this one is that very few people will watch it, so it'll probably be fairly empty.
Well, do you want to save your money and watch it at home?
Probably. Yeah. So,
I have a handy dandy means of letting you do that.
That might be useful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
P to the L to the E to the X. Look at that. Screw all these streaming services trying to merge together and not just be cable, by the way, already. We talk about that a million times. But motherfuckers, just do the thing I keep saying. You know.
I did an article on that today. Peacock and Paramount Plus are in talks of potentially merging.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Just
Paramount's
do it.
Also potentially in talks with merging with Warner Bros. So it looks like Paramount's trying to unload. Which is funny because I always tell you privately, the one subscription service I feel like I could cancel without any repercussions in my personal life is Paramount Plus.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Warner. I'm going to unload on Warner if they don't get my emails back to me and stuff.
Hey, well, since we're talking Warner and wrestling and movies, fucking Coyote versus Acme again.
John Cena's, the whole Wile E. Coyote movie.
Shelved again.
They were shopping that around and they decided, I guess, not to anymore, which means that, again, they've made an entire movie that supposedly was received pretty well.
Supposedly good and ready, and we're just not going to see it.
There's got to be some kind of weird tax loophole bullshit thing that's happening here where it's like money laundering.
That's not even a loophole. They're being very upfront that that's what the fuck they're doing. But there has to be a way to like stop them.
I hate that. I hate what Sony's doing with those movies. I hate a lot of that kind of stuff. But if you want more of that content, go to fanboysanonymous.com and let me know. And I will, I don't know, maybe I'll write up something about it or we'll do something. You can always do the Pick Your Poison tier too. Keep that in mind. And I mean, just to put it out there, if you want to do the pick a poison tier of like an Iron Claw thing, you could always do something like that too. Anyway, that is the Post Malone section of this, which devolved into completely other different types of topics, but that's what the hot tags are about. Let's get into actually an ROH thing. The bracket was revealed for the ROH Women's World Championship Tournament. Now, of course, I've said a million times before, I'm not a big fan of ROH in the sense of I'm not watching the TV show and I'm not heavily invested in a lot of these characters. Couldn't even tell you the names of some of them. But I did check out the bracket and I didn't check too much of the information. Some of the names I actually don't know off the top of my head. Like when it just says Love and Moon. I'm like, wait, who are they? J-Rod?
Yeah. Sandra Moon.
So I don't know her.
A great indie wrestler. Dynasty. Love, I didn't know off the top of my head either. I had to ask somebody. Apparently, it's Susie Love or Sussy Love. She's a luchadora. And who's the other name that you mentioned?
J-Rod.
J-Rod. J-Rod really felt like, oh God, you gotta tell me you couldn't find somebody else for Queen Aminata to slightly be competitive with? But yeah, I'm still looking forward to when we get down to like at least the semifinals of this thing. It should be pretty interesting.
So the only one that they've had go through so far is Aminata, right?
No, they've had all.
Four
of
them went through.
Yeah.
Okay, the graphic I had seen, it was only Aminata at that point.
Yeah, that was just the first shot of the full bracket because that happened after Aminata had her victory over J-Rod on the show. So as it stands right now, that's this week, Queen Aminata, Layla Hirsch defeated Rachel Ellering, Mercedes Martinez defeated Trish Adora, and Diamante defeated Kiera Hogan to advance in the tournament.
That's kind of shitty putting them up against each other. It's interesting though. But, you know.
Maybe they work best with each other as well because obviously they probably were able to plan it out at home.
True. So. Yeah. Practice some stuff and maybe get out some of that frustration on each other where it's like, you didn't clean dishes, God damn it. All right, well, I'm going to stiff you and get a nice potato shot right there. So we do have some other matches that are going to be coming up soon when it comes to Billy Starks against Renegade. I'm assuming we're all going Starks winning that one.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that would make no sense if they ended up going the opposite way. Viva Van against Abaddon.
Like Abaddon.
One of them is employed by the company.
Yeah. I would assume that would be more towards Abaddon. Who do you guys think is going to end up winning this based off of the bracket?
Billy.
Still heading towards Billy?
It feels like it's Billy's to win, but it also feels like, hey, I made the joke on Twitter. I was like, give it to Sandra Moon. Let's shock some people here. Like, because okay, what if it's Billy versus Valkyrie? Yeah, they're great. I love them, but really,
I'm a little bit. I'm unsure that it's going to be Starks, just because I think that the story is still her winning the main women's title, and I think that her having this championship would be too much of her holding on to this for a while, and Athena still holding the women's title. So I think that she has to defeat Athena for the main women's title, in which case she should fail in this quest. And I think, just based on what I've seen recently in the last few weeks, I would give this to Queen Aminata.
I like it. I could also see Ty Valkyrie win.
As somebody who isn't super invested in there, to me, it kind of looks like, since they did such little with Ty Valkyrie, I would hope that she would win, in the sense that you got to do something at some point.
You know her initials are TV?
That is true.
But they're doing enough with her. She's got a sitcom on the AEW
she sure does.
YouTube channel now.
And they're funny. Like Morrison, I'll always hate that he wasn't more of a top star, but they're funny together.
Well, that's one of those random topics here. Let's go bounce around again to... Yeah, let's hold off on that. Let's talk about some New Japan stuff if we're talking ROH.
Yeah,
Cal, you want to take the reins?
Yeah, sure. So last weekend was the New Beginning in Osaka show, which was Will Ospreay's final New Japan show as a fully contracted wrestler there. So I won't go through every single result because most of the matches don't matter, but the final 4 matches do have stuff to talk about. First of which was Kazuchika Okada's final singles match in New Japan, which was him defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi. Just to, wrap up that rivalry that has been going since, early to mid 2010s, around about that time. I was
still in my teens, probably, when they were feuding.
Yeah. But, that was it was just a nice match just to play the hits, and Okada gets the victory. He hasn't lost a match since announcing that he was leaving New Japan, which is interesting, but I guess they don't really see any need to have him just lose to everyone on the way out, which I guess is fair. And by reports coming out, it seems like he's pretty set going to AEW, so he will get an opportunity to come back to New Japan at some point off the back of that. The second match, one that I'm not particularly happy about, which is Kenta and Chase Owens won the tag team titles against El Fantasma and Hikuleo. I mean, I wasn't particularly infused with Fantasma and Hikuleo having the tag titles, but now it's on this version of Kenta and Chase Owens, who's always been a perpetual job guy in New Japan. And it also just adds ever layers of confusion to what is this current iteration of the Bullet Club, which has the War Dogs on one side, House of Torture on the other, and then Kenta, Chase Owens, and Taiji Ishimori in the middle, just not affiliated with any kind of one side or the other.
Yeah, I believe that we should just drop the Bullet Club altogether. Call it War Dog. Call them the War Dogs. Call them the House of Torture, and there's no need for it. That's my personal feeling.
I mean, I'd be fine with Bullet Club staying as long as it was just attached to the War Dogs. That would be fine by me. Then we had what is now currently my match of the year. Zack Sabre Jr. Defeated Bryan Danielson.
Makes sense.
Tony, you were a fan of their match at Wrestle Dream, right?
I think I had that as one of my favorite matches of the year, if not my match of the year. I don't remember for sure.
Yeah. So this is better than their match at Wrestle Dream. I'd say not considerably better, but noticeably better. Again, it went through the approach of trying to submit each other constantly, and then when they realised that they couldn't force each other to submit because they were both too stubborn, they started then kicking each other, striking each other, hitting big moves, trying to pin each other instead, and Zack Sabre Jr. got the victory with a cradle on Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson then cut a promo after the show officially saying that Zack Sabre Jr. is the best technical wrestler in the world, and saying that that New Japan's in safe hands with him, and saying that they're now 1-on-1, and he wants to do a 2 out of 3 falls match to determine to determine the outright victor between the two of them, but he wants to do it on neutral ground.
WWE. There you go.
I was going to say, so at WrestleMania.
Well, it's interesting because if you say neutral ground, that means it can't take place in America, in AEW, in the UK, in Japan, or in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So it has to take place in Canada for Stampede Wrestling.
So again.
Crown Jewel, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
At Elimination Chamber in the continent of Australia. Match.
And then kind of the match that, even though that was, again, my match of the year so far this year, a match that I won't be able to forget of at any point in time beyond this was the Steel Cage 10-man tag team match main event of Bullet Club War Dogs defeating United Empire, including Will Ospreay, who, as he has done throughout this ending part of his career, is going out on his sword and taking the pinfall from David Finlay. This match was absolutely insane in many aspects, to the point where we had bunches of table spots, barbed wire all over the place. thumbtacks. The steel cage was quite funny because it wasn't a traditional like WWE or AEW steel cage where it's attached to the ring. It was like surrounding the ringside area, so they could fight around ringside and stuff as well. Steel chair shots to the head, all the crazy stuff. To the point where at one point Henare had to be just taken out because he was bleeding so much off the top of his head that they had to apply some kind of makeshift tourniquet to his head to stop the bleeding. It was absolutely insane. For the first 45 minutes, it was probably one of the best, if not the best, War Games match that I've ever seen, because they treated it like a War Games match. And then it kind of lost steam towards the end by the point that the Bullet Club War Dogs started to tear the ring apart and to try and expose the wooden planks underneath it. And then it got dangerous to another level where they were standing around the ring and they were trying to do spots in the ring while they were falling through the ring. Like the planks were going up and down all over the place. It was just chaotic in a way that was just beyond dangerous, and I was surprised that someone didn't get seriously injured doing any of that stuff, which would have been upsetting if it was Will Ospreay that was one of the ones that got seriously injured, especially for AEW. But yeah, as I say, they decided to put the people that were staying over, which I think is the right move, but then they had a very touching go away ceremony for Will Ospreay, like just so he gets to cut a promo at the end, was very emotional about his experience in New Japan and how he like loved all the fans and loved the guys that he was teaming with, and he will be back one day, but he doesn't know when. And it was a great spectacle of a match and a very moving closing ceremony. So Will Ospreay has one final match to do on the independent circuit, which he'll be facing this weekend Michael Oku for the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship. So he'll have that match, as has been the case throughout this final run of Will Ospreay. He will inevitably lose that match, but then he'll come into AEW and won't need to worry about that stuff anymore. So that's mainly the stuff that took place on that show. The only other bits of news for the New Japan side of things, at least the immediacy, is that they've announced Kazuchika Okada's final two matches for New Japan, which will be a couple of 10-man tags where he'll be teaming with members of Chaos against members of the United Empire, the remaining members of the United Empire, including the final match, which will involve Matt Riddle on the United Empire side. So and I guess the most noteworthy thing about that is they're just a couple of matches that are taking place. Like, I think his final match is second on the card of that show. So it's not even like they're making a huge deal about it or putting it on as the main event and going to have a big final closing ceremony like they did for Ospreay. Essentially, he's just going to have his match second on the card, probably bow to all the audience and then leave. So I think that may give a bit of if you're just trying to look into it a little bit more, you may give somewhat of an indication that they're potentially not too happy about the fact that he's leaving.
Yeah, I can see that being the case.
I mean, do you blame him?
No, but you would have thought they would show maybe a little bit of reverence to probably the biggest star they've had since at least Tanahashi, if not all the way back to Inoki.
I mean, that's fair, but also there was a lot of tears during that match with Tanahashi. So.
Yeah, but I kind of wish that was kind of if that was the case, I kind of wish that match was just the send-off for him rather than just putting him on like 2 random shows at the end of February, just some random tag team matches. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the side of things. Also, when I've been listening to like some New Japan podcast things, they're speculating that Jungle Boy or Jack Perry, I should call him Jack Perry now because that's basically what his name is, will probably be part of the New Japan Cup coming up.
That's interesting. That's a good way to get him out there.
Yeah, that's all that I've got from the New Japan side of things for today.
So let's bounce back around then and talk about, I guess like we can throw a lot of the TV type stuff in here from this week, in the sense that this is not a good week when it comes to injuries. We know that at least 4 people are injured right now. Now, not every single one of these injuries happened this week, but this is like when we found out about some of them. like Edris Enofe, I guess apparently has been injured for about a week or so now.
During a match, no, he's injured during the match that they taped on Tuesday. During which was well, no, was that when he fought Axiom?
It was before that. I'm pretty sure.
So, yeah, he was injured during match he and Malik had against Axiom and Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
He says he'll be all right.
Nikkita Lyons is another one that's on here. That's like that explains why she's been absent. Which
apparently he got injured again.
That's like, what, her third injury or her fourth?
I think third.
At a certain point, you got to kind of look at somebody and go, look, how much do we want to invest in somebody that doesn't have the, I don't know if you would say like the stamina or the, you know, well, the fragility in the sense that how many times can people get injured and not?
My kind of question to that is do you look at the individual then, or do you look at the system?
The system there's got to be some reason for all these like torn ACLs and stuff. But the individual people too, you have to look at, because certain people do have more fragile bodies. And every time that they've tried to do something with Nikkita Lyons, she's out after like 3 weeks or so. Like they've had this girl in the mix for how many years? 3? And she's maybe wrestled like a dozen or so matches, I think.
It's more than that.
Let me see on what they got on Cage Match, because
I mean, if you include like house show matches and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the house show things, I'm sure she's done more, but like let's see what they got under the broadcasted shows. If you count 205 Live and Level Up, and you don't count WoW that she was apparently in, that she was Faith the Lioness, she's only had 23 broadcasted matches since 2021. So for 3 years, to have 23 matches and to have to keep being out as long as that is, there's got to be something to this. I don't think that's, you know, I'm not like calling for her to be released or anything for anybody that's wondering, but like there are people that have a tendency for that, and you do have to eventually assess that. One of those people, also a woman in the mix when it comes to NXT, Shotzi. Now, I'm going to put a hold on the Shotzi discussion because we're going to get into some spoiler talk, but just saying in general, she's another one. Another injury that happened this week was another injury-prone person, although this one's not necessarily from being injury-prone. This is more an injury-adjacent person who tends to cause a couple injuries. The Sammy Guevara incident with Jeff Hardy. I think Jeff Hardy's got a broken nose. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so essentially what happened is that I saw a clip of it from the upcoming Rampage show, where Sammy Guevara goes up for a kind of twisting moonsault in their no DQ match, and Jeff Hardy gets the knees up. He connects with the knees, but then Guevara's knee goes into Jeff Hardy's face at the same time. So yeah, it seemed that if it is just a broken nose, then he's actually probably quite fortunate in the grand scheme of things, because all of his weight, a lot of Guevara's weight came down on his face area. So yeah, Guevara's a bit reckless, and that's saying something when he's against Jeff Hardy.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, when you hear a report that says something like Jeff Hardy has like some kind of an injury or something, you're like, Jeff. And you're like, oh no, it's not his fault this time. It's Sammy just fucking landed straight on his nose.
It's a gnarly clip too, man.
It looks like that hurt like a son of a bitch, you know? Like,
yeah. But I mean, yeah, Guevara doesn't have a good track record, particularly when it comes to wrestling the Hardys.
Yeah, that's a bad combination, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
But yeah, I think that it's Guevara's in a bit of a weird situation right now, in the sense that I think he's almost having to try too hard, because he's just not getting any sort of like consistency on TV. and any kind of consistent direction right now with this whole Jericho. Is he part of the Don Callis feud? Is he not part of the Don Callis feud? Is he just doing stuff in the meantime?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe he's trying to compensate by putting on maybe. Well, as I say, he does do a lot of flashy moves anyway, so maybe that was part of it. But yeah, it's just an unfortunate incident. It can kind of happen to anybody, but it seems to happen to in Guevara matches more than most.
And I'm somebody who keeps always saying Guevara is one of the more entertaining people to me in the ring. But at the same time, how many more excuses can I keep making when it comes to, like, you got to slow down a little bit, or you got to, somebody's got to have a talk with his style, and they got to sort something out, because you can't just have this be a regular thing like that. It's not good. To go back to before we go back to the Shotzi thing, is there any other injuries that happened this week? I think that was all the ones that I came across, but maybe there's more that I'm
well, Wheeler Yuta's injured. Sean reported that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which he's advertised for a banger of a match. They're going to do, BCC's going to Mexico, and they're going to have like one of those crazy
an 8-man tag,
8-man tags, and I want to watch that. And I found out that go ahead.
We say it's a crazy 8-man tag. So they're facing. So all 4 members of BCC are facing 4 members of CMLL. Could you guess what the combined average age of the CMLL team is?
65.
It's a little bit. That's a little pushing it.
Okay, it's just that.
It is high. It is a high number, but it's not that high.
Oh, I was going to go actually higher. Not that high. The combined age of
not the combined age, but like the average age.
Oh, the average
4 participants. Yeah.
4 people. 42.
It's higher than that. It's 49 and a half. So that is Mystico, who's the youngest actually out of that entire group. Volador Jr., Ultimo Guerrero, and the oldest member of it, Blue Panther, who's 63 years old. But the reason why he's in this match is because Bryan Danielson has always wanted to face Blue Panther. So as part of his farewell run, he's just getting to face anyone he wants to, really.
I love that. Like, that's cool.
So yeah, they go
be more receptive.
So their main event in that are in Mexico. Will and Nightingale's also going to be on that show as well. So
yeah.
They said that there was someone else injured in AEW, isn't there?
Julia Hart, right?
Yeah, Julia Hart is out injured at the moment, but she's still appearing on TV, but she's just not wrestling at the moment.
Too many injuries going on, man. Everybody's got to slow the fuck down. Listen to Jim Ross. So to go back to the Shotzi thing, one of the reasons why that sucks is obviously, it's not good when anybody gets injured, but the timing of it is like as bad as it can be when it comes to poor Shotzi, man. She can't catch a break when it comes to she can catch a break, but not in that way. It's a terrible joke. So they recorded this week's episode of NXT per usual, and they also recorded next week's episode of NXT, and we will tell you some spoilers about that. So if you don't want to know, then earmuffs, skip ahead, whatever you want to do when it comes to that. There was a stupid backstage segment where earlier in the night, Tatum Paxley had a match with, was it Lola Vice or is it Roxanne? I'm blanking off the top of my head now. It doesn't really matter. She lost the match.
It's Lola, I think, yeah.
It was Lola. Lyra Valkyria takes her to the back, and then, in the back, she's kind of tending to Paxley, who's like, all down and out. And Shotzi just comes over to her and's like, hey, kind of fuck you. I'm having a title match next week for some reason. And immediately that's like, oh, okay, whatever. But it also came out that was kind of advertised for this episode, and they decided to push it back for next week. Well, they recorded it. And during the recording, something happens that she just doing her DDT, and she does something to her knee. The injury is bad enough that everybody's treating it like, wow, she is like screaming in pain, and she's going to be out for a long time. But I haven't seen anything that specifies exactly what she did to her knee. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what the fuck any of that would mean anyway. But the timing of that sucks in the sense that, like, man, she's finally getting a shot to do something. They barely ever do anything with Shotzi, and right when she does that, in that match, she gets injured again. This is like the 4th or 5th injury that Shotzi's had that's put her on the shelf. Another situation where you got to figure out what's going on. Like, what is it about her style or her fitness regime or whatever it is that is not working for Shotzi and that she's getting injured so often? Apparently what happens is they just decide to, on a whim, have like an impromptu open challenge. Lash Legend answers that challenge and she loses, and she had beaten somebody earlier in the show. I'm going to try to figure out what that was on my breakdown here. Lash Legend beats Kalani Jordan and then just does this. So I don't know how they're planning on necessarily maneuvering that and kind of airing those two segments, but that's clearly not the plan, again, of what they had in mind. I don't know where this random Shotzi thing happened, anyway. Was it just something to do? Probably.
Oh, okay. So no, because you're not paying attention. I can fill in the gaps there. So after Vengeance Day, they had made a big deal of like, oh, Shotzi says she wants an NXT title shot on Twitter. And then during a house show in, I believe, Venice, Florida, it was Shotzi and Gigi against Tatum and Lyra. And by Shotzi winning that, they had agreed, okay, we'll fight on Tuesday. I guess they meant we'll fight on Tuesday. Please come to the show on Tuesday. But actually, we're going to tape it for the following.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, she gets injured, which sucks. She was finally getting some type of regular thing going, and I'm really heartbroken for her.
Well, what I mean by the idea of like it's just something to do, I get the sense that they looked at the calendar and they're like, fuck, we have the rest of February and we have all of March that we have to get through before we get to Stand and Deliver, and we don't have anything for Lyra to do. So let's just give her this random little side feud with Shotzi. We're going to set up this whole thing with Roxanne, but we have to like kill time. So let's just do like a Shotzi thing and she can, do that. I don't get a sense that like Shotzi was planned to like win that belt or that she was going to be incorporated into the feud with Roxanne and fighting for it to Stand and Deliver or anything. I feel like it's just, a thing, probably. So that might not change plans too much, other than they still have to figure out something else to do in the meantime, which seems like they might be pivoting to Lash Legend. But it still sucks no matter what, because of course, we don't want anybody to get injured. And depending on how long she's out, we already know that she's out of the Elimination Chamber qualifier thing for tonight. Granted, nobody expected her to win. So that doesn't change things too much for that either. But it did, in, one way, make things make a little bit more sense, because they used to have it as, I believe it was Naomi against Shotzi.
Yeah.
So they put two baby faces against each other, and it's kind of like, that's a little weird. And now it's going to be Naomi against Alba Fire. And Tiffany Stratton's going to go up against Zelina Vega. So Zelina was going to lose anyway. And Naomi was going to win, so was Tiffany Stratton. So, that side of it, they pivoted and they figured that out. But, man, that sucks for Shotzi.
Yeah, I agree. It's really heartbreaking, because again, she's somebody who struggled for so long to find something, and now like she finally found something. It seems like it's not meant to be.
Some other spoilers for this episode, by the way, for anybody that's still on the earmuff side of things. We had set up a lot of this stuff, so it's like we don't even need to talk about NXT too much, but Obafemi retained the NXT North American Championship over Lexis King, supposedly in part because of distraction from Esther Stone, because he did a whole backstage thing because Lexis King's character is like, I'm just going to piss off everybody.
Lexis King's, yeah, it's like, I'm just literally going to start shit.
Mm-hmm. Roxanne Perez beats Ren Sinclair, whose character is, I will tell people almost like nothing that they can be upset about, and then they will hate me and beat me in a match. Very weird that they're doing that with Ren Sinclair. They did a thing on NXT where last week they had Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen talk, and Briggs was telling Jensen, man the fuck up, grow some balls, and stop moping around because somebody's going to take your spot in NXT. So this week that led to Brooks Jensen being all mad, jumping Josh Briggs, and then now they have a match on this episode, and I guess they just wanted to skip straight to the end of this whole thing too, because it not only ends up being those two having their match this fast, but Josh Briggs beats Brooks Jensen, and then they just hug.
Do they?
Yeah, supposedly.
Oh, bro, they have cold feet with this team. Because this is the second time now that you've split them up just to go, yeah, come here. Come on, bring it in.
Yeah.
Just kidding, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know why they're doing that. That sounds like an odd cold feet kind of situation. They also have JC Jane beats Ariana Grace. I already mentioned Lash Legend and Kehlani Jordan. But one of the things that happened last week that carries over into there, and it's worth talking about, is that the Wolf Dogs won the NXT Tag Team Championships from Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo. And Adriana Rizzo, you know, she talks like this for every single thing that she does, which I find very funny. She's got a deeper voice than they do, too, by the way. It's great. I see that Jada Parker is like, you know, a lot of people going crazy over her.
Yeah, that's the thing. I saw that after Tuesday. People found Jada Parker.
Let's be as transparent as they love her ass.
I don't think it's just her ass. I think people think that she's very attractive, and they're very into seeing what she can bring to the table.
People are like, oh, I'm going to watch NXT now and stuff. But we are getting some transition of them possibly turning heel, not only in the sense that JC Jane is paying off Adriana Rizzo, and that didn't work out all that well because she handed her some money and said, oh, if they retain the tag titles, give them a shot for JCU. Well, they lost the tag titles, but they're taking a payoff. Luca Crucifino was getting into Tony D's ear about nobody should be telling you what to do. You're the Don. So they're finally coming around to, yeah, the guy that should be in that group, by all means, is finally going to be in that group, I guess.
The Italian name, by the way.
The Italian lawyer named Luca Crucifino. Fucking, I don't know why they didn't do that from the start, but now that they lost the tag titles to the Wolf Dogs are, quote unquote, officially the Wolf Dogs, because Braun Breaker was moping backstage and Baron Corbin agreed, hey, if you and I win those tag belts tonight, I'll call us the Wolf Dogs. I'll only do it once, but I'll call us the Wolf Dogs. This team, I don't know. I'm digging this team.
Yeah, they're great, and they should go on the main roster and be great. Baron Corbin seems the most natural he's ever seemed. I don't know if maybe that's just me because I'm a Baron Corbin fan, but I think he's tremendous.
Well, they are going to be set up as there's a number one contenders match. Axiom and Nathan Frazier against Fraser. I always want to call him Frazier. Against Chase U, and Chase U's Duke Hudson and Andre Chase win that. So potentially at Stand and Deliver, seems like we're going to get Wolf Dogs versus Chase U.
That would be pretty cool.
There's probably not a bigger match that you can do, realistically. So maybe Chase U wins and the Wolf Dogs leave NXT. Maybe the Wolf Dogs keep the belts. We'll have to talk about that later down the line, but that seems to be the lineup for next week's NXT. And they're going to be recording a double shot of SmackDown tonight, but we don't have even tonight's episode of SmackDown to tell you, so we don't have next week's either. But next Hot Tags, we will talk about the spoilers for the SmackDown episode 2, which thankfully that's the case because that's going to make it a little bit easier for the people that have to do the coverage of Elimination Chamber. We're going to be able to like not have to necessarily watch SmackDown and go to bed a little early and wake up.
Don't blow me. You know I do. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, by the way, Callum, Iron Claw's on Plex. That's something in the meantime. Log in whenever you want to watch that. The other thing that I have in mind for the hot tags is just to basically say, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Because that covers everything for me.
think I'm good. What about you guys?
I'm fine. I don't need to go into too much depth about the TV. I would at least encourage people, if they haven't seen it, to just check out Orange Cassidy versus Matt Taven. But for primarily that one table spot, that's pretty fun.
Check out the Darby promo. Give us your thoughts on that.
That's quite polarizing.
Yeah, that's like.
I'm gonna have thoughts about that when we get into the breakdown of Revolution, because I wasn't the biggest fan.
No, I can see both sides of the argument about it. Yeah, so I probably lean a bit more on the Meltzer side of things, of saying that you probably should just focus it on the fact that they're wearing suits covered in your blood and that they beat up Sting's sons, rather than going to the all friends wrestling side of things.
But it's like, they're doing that though. Like, this is the thing that they keep wanting to do when they turn heel, which is why I'm just like, man.
Well, I understand that's what the Bucks are doing. I'm just saying that in the build-up to this particular feud, Darby should be focusing on the fact that they beat up Sting when they won the tag titles, rather than the power trip side of things. Save that for later down the road. Focus now on the fact that your mentor and his children got beaten up in the. I say children, obviously they're grown-ass men, but they're still his children. Yeah, got beaten up, and they caused you to bleed, and they're out there wearing your bloodstained suit on the show. So focusing on that a little bit more, and then we're good. I don't think it was absolutely horrendous, but it's for the most part, this has been a very good angle so far. But it's just that this one I think was a little bit of a misstep.
So obviously we will break that down in more detail when we get into our Revolution talk 2 weeks from now. Same as how we're not going to bother to talk about the qualifying matches that already happened and on Monday Night Raw and stuff from the Elimination Chamber. We'll talk about that next week. The only thing that's like kind of up in the air right now about the SmackDown episode tonight is what are they going to do with The Rock and Roman Reigns and all. I'm anticipating some kind of an announcement of, hey, The Rock is going to either be at Elimination Chamber and they're going to do a confrontation thing with, maybe Roman's there too. I don't know. But
they're not going to, because they've already announced that
the Grayson Waller effect thing.
They're just doing the Grayson Waller effect.
But I could see them being like, oh, you're going to be interviewed by Grayson Waller and we're going to be there too. And we're going to, do something or whatever. A lot of people are anticipating that The Rock is going to be in the Elimination Chamber match. I don't necessarily think that's going to be true, but maybe there is more of the announcement of the tag match at WrestleMania that I really don't think that they should do for multiple different reasons. But I'll talk about that when whatever they say happens. They could very well just basically do nothing and just be like, well, they're there and look at that. You get to look at their faces and that's it, because that's what WWE does a lot these days. They just, Roman Reigns returns and so is here and you see them backstage. But
I understand the cynicism, but I think if The Rock is there, come on, like, he's gonna do something.
You mean something other than just say buy that Cody Crybaby shirt? Yeah,
I think they got to move the needle in some way, because I can't imagine he's just always gonna be there, board member or not. I can't imagine that's just going to be a thing.
Well, of course, anything that happens, we will roll into next week's discussion with the Elimination Chamber talk, the hot tags, and anything else along those lines. But, of course, if you have anything that you want us to say elsewhere, we missed a hot tag that you were really hoping to get our opinions on, drop them in the comments below. Let us know. We will leave our comments and keep the ball rolling in that fashion. Make sure you do check out that Discord, though. That's another way for us to give our random thoughts. Make sure you check out that Darkcast episode. Make sure that you follow Fanboys Anonymous if you want more of that whole streaming discussion and everything. Make sure you do all that Marketplace stuff that I mentioned. Join the different tiers there, pick up the merchandise, and so on and so forth. And make sure that you also check out the link tree at amangotree.com. All the different links that you see there will all be funneling back to a Mango Tree. They're all related. They're all me. And then, if you follow me at Tony Mango and the Facebook and Twitter accounts and all that stuff, then you should also be following these other two guys for what they're up to.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. check out my work at Fightful.com, and that's it for now. But check out what Callum has going on.
You can find me on Twitter at Weekmeister14. Check out the power rankings every weekend over on smarkmoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And once you've done that, you can also head on over to the Fantasy League, both through Smark at Moment or going straight through WWEFantasyLeague.com. See how all our teams are doing, who's picking up points as we head towards Elimination Chamber, the last big chance to gather points before WrestleMania. So once that's happened, we'll be able to see where we're standing, because that'll be where the final teams are all set up, and we'll be on the road to crowning a winner.
Most recent update for the Fantasy League, for anybody who wants to know, I dropped Bronson Reed, and I picked up The Miz.
Much in the same way that Bobby Lashley dropped Bronson Reed in the match.
I still don't know why he's not in that.
I can't believe they're not going to Australia.
It's really
That's
crazy.
Ridiculous.
I know that some reports said something about like his wife is expecting a child or something, so that like maybe that's factor in, but I don't know. It kind of seems to me like
surely she'll be in Australia as well.
Preemptive congrats if that ends up being the case, but yeah, you know, the Fantasy League stuff, we'll have more to talk about that when it comes to the Elimination Chamber stuff and the predictions, and we'll break all that down next week. Next time you're going to be hearing from us, though, is going to be the follow-up of the mock draft. We'll talk about our fantasy cards for that Elimination Chamber mock draft that we had done, where you get to see what we did with the people that we picked. So stay tuned for that. We're going to probably record that now and have that uploaded for tomorrow. And yeah, I think that's going to do us in for the hot tag. So leave those comments. Make sure to hit the like button. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching, everybody. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.